Brewery of Nová Paka. History. The tradition of brewing beer in Nová Paka goes deep into the past. From the historical sources it's known that beer was brewed soon after the town was founded, that is in the 13th century. At that time, beer was brewed in a little wooden house on the square. However, this brewery was burned down to a cinder during a big fire in 1536. In 1601, Jan Rudolf Trčka exempted Nová Paka from paying the taxes and from corvée, on condition that the community wouldn't brew beer any longer. The citizens accepted this condition, and afterwards, beer was delivered to Nová Paka from the nearby brewery of Dřevěnice. After establishing the magistrate in Nová Paka in 1791, which was no more depending on the manual nobility, the gentry still lodged claims for the deliveries of their beer. This was a precarious situation, resulting in a lengthy controversy between the magistrate and the gentry, and lasted up to the abolishment of corvée in 1848. This period was already used for the preparation of construction of the current brewery. In 1870, a joint stock company was founded with the aim to build the brewery. Of course, the majority shareholder was the community of Nová Paka. However, about 160 other shareholders, most of them the citizens of Nová Paka, were participating too. In 1871, the foundation stone was laid and the building was ready as early as 1 year later, and when the historically first brew of beer was brewed. Ever since, beer has been brewed here without interruption till today. The whole construction remained in its original state and in the way the brewery was built, so it stays till today. The brewery nowadays. The milestone of utmost importance for the brewery of Nová Paka was the year of 2001. At that time, a really modern history of the brewery started to be written, and trends were founded on which it was possible to construct the future development of the company. The brewery of Nová Paka belongs to a small group of independent breweries, and its production capacity ranks it to small enterprises. The quality of its products results not only from the best starting raw materials, but above all, from the three great way of beer production, which places it among the breweries that are much sought for not only by the domestic customers, but also by those from abroad. The beer is produced in a traditional way of the bottom fermentation process of beer, so-called lagers, with a characteristic bread taste, appropriate natural saturation, golden color, rich typical dense head, bitterness and a strong flavor. Technology of the brewers, malt and beer. The quality of the starting raw materials, observing the technological processes and the overall hygienic conditions are very important during the production. The classical, or better said, the traditional production of beer includes the following phases. At first, brewer's malt should be produced. Brewing barley is purchased from the surrounding farmers and is stocked in the attic. Then it is soaked in containers for 2 days, and from there it is displaced into the malt house, and then it starts to germinate there. At first it will be soaked in 4 small groups. On the second day, it will be scattered in layers of the same thickness by means of wooden shovels and turned over twice a day in order to prevent growing of the germinating grains together. After 6 days, the green malt will be picked up and displayed on the malt kilns. In the malt kilns, the malt will be dried for twice 24 hours, and afterwards, its small rootlets will be removed in a special machine. These will be sold under the name malt flour to the farmers as a full-value feed with a high content of proteins. The ready malt is then transported by means of bent conveyors to the malt floor. Now beer is brewed. Dust will be removed from the mature malt and malt is crushed to malt coarse meal. Then it is treated in a vapor-heated vessel with an efficient stirrer. During this process, fresh mosh comes into existence and it's necessary to filter it through yet not dissolved parts called brewer's grains, which is in fact a waste formed during the beer production. The fresh mash is then brewed together with hop. The final product of this process is hopped wort and is cooled down to the fermenting temperature of 6 to 8 degrees centigrade. Then beer is fermenting. The main fermentation of beer proceeds in open fermentation tanks filled with cooled hopped wort fermented with brewer's yeast. They manage to transform the major part of fermentable substances in the hopped wort to ethyl alcohol. A secondary fermentation product is carbon dioxide. The process of the main fermentation lasts from 7 to 15 days, depending on the alcoholic strength of beer, and during this process, the maximum temperature of the fermenting hopped wort is maintained at 11 degrees centigrade. After the end of fermentation, the contents of the tank will be cooled and a young beer will be put into barrels in the large stock. Afterwards, beer has to mature. The post-fermentation and maturing of beer continues in the larger stock. They are larger tanks incorporated in the cooling boxes that are cooled to the temperature of 0 to 1 degree centigrade. The remaining keys fall down to the bottom of the tank and beer is clarified in such a way. The post-fermentation and maturing last from 5 to 8 weeks, depending on the alcoholic strength of beer. Now, when post-fermentation process is closed, filtration of beer by means of Kieselguhr occurs. Beer treated in such a way is pumped into pressure tanks and is ready to be bottled into the prepared containers. And it will be bottled at last. Beer is bottled into glass bottles, perfectly clean from both outside and inside. The inspection apparatus checks the quality of washing and rejects bottles mechanically damaged or not perfectly clean. After filling with pasteurized beer, the bottles are closed with crown caps and pass through automatic check-in of fullness. Full bottles are provided with a label and the date of durability and put into transport or cardboard boxes. PET bottles are rinsed with drinking water, then put into a monoblock for filling and pre-filled with carbon dioxide in the same manner as the glass bottles. Afterwards, they are filled with pasteurized beer and closed with screw caps and labeled. Then they are packed into multipacks and stored on a pallet. The same care is taken for the barrels. The brewery in Nová Paka meets the condition given by the Act on Foodstuffs, not only the output products, but also the inputs into the production and ways where the products or its parts come into contact with the surroundings are checked in the laboratory each day. The responsible state organizations check the brewery and plants together with the products. The beer of Nová Paka found its regular consumers all over the world, thanks to large investments into technology and extension of the durability of the produced beers. About 40% of the production is designed for export. Besides its own main task, this is to produce malt and beer, the brewery has its activities also in tourism and culture. Several thousands of tourists pass through the brewery each year as members of the excursions organized by travel agencies and by the brewery itself. Every year, the brewery participates in or directly organizes or co-organizes many culture, sport, social and presentation events. The Brewery of Nová Paka has, together with only few other small breweries, an ideal possibility to continue in the Czech original way of brewing the golden beverage and to offer to the customer a difference in the form of a genuine traditional Czech beer. It can be demonstrated by many awards which were obtained by the Brewery of Nová Paka. However, the most important is the growing popularity and consumption of the Nová Paka beer in the Czech Republic and abroad. May God give you happiness!